The last time I came up to a conference, I was introduced by the host by saying that no tea, coffee or biscuits would be served until Paul had stopped speaking, which is a really good way of getting the room on side. So anyway, my slot really is just to talk a little bit more about data, because Landmark is all about data, but more in terms of the aspect of land use data, site contextualization and site location data. So taking your building from not just the way you do it now in terms of putting the BIM objects in, seeing what everything's made of, etc., but actually putting the building into its real life surroundings, seeing the impact that it's going to have over its life cycle. Now, we've talked, and I think we all agree in the room, that data really is the linchpin to the success of a BIM project. Basically, the old cliche, isn't it? What you put in equals what you get out. But what I want to show really over the next 10-15 minutes is we also recognise that the data gathering process is kind of laborious for you guys. It's time consuming, it's costly as well. So again, what I want to show is just give you an idea of the different types of data that's out there for you right now that you can access, and also to show you how you can take some of the pain and some of the cost and some of the time out of actually gathering the right data for you at the right time. So Landmark, yeah, that's who we are, a little bit about us. Just very briefly, fundamentally, Landmark is a data reseller. We're the key reseller for people like Ordnance Survey, for the Environment Agency, amongst many, many others. And what we do is we take their raw data feeds, largely through geographic and land use data. We wrap it up, we mash it up, and we put it out in a number of different websites that can be accessed by property professionals out there. And once you've got a login for one, you've got a login for all of them, and you can access whichever you want. But a lot of the time I'm asked, why? Why do you bother? Why do you take all this time looking after the data? What's the point? There's two reasons for me why it's important that as property professionals, as designers, we look into sort of wider aspect contextual data. And there's two stories in the sort of recent media which remind me, sort of hammer home the point to me why we did it. The first of those was the opening ceremony at the London 2012 Olympics. 4 years ago, that is this year, hard to believe. But what that did, it showed a timeline of what happened to this country throughout its life cycle. So the Victorian ages, the Industrial Revolution, the two wars, and the battering our land has taken from that. So actually, it's worth knowing, to my mind, you know, to know what you're building and what's happened to that land that you're about to put your new building or your new infrastructure on, and to make provisions early in the design stage to accommodate that. The other story happened in Leicester a few years back, and I say you're probably familiar with this one on the news. Leicester City Council, in their infinite wisdom, put up a multi-storey car park near the city centre to allow more visitors into the city. Unfortunately, after it was built, subsequent historic investigations found that the car park was built on the site of an old graveyard, which turned out to have the remains of King Richard III on it. Unfortunately, that made the car park what we call a triple SI, a site of specific scientific interest, which meant it's a land use constraint, stopped the planning, and unfortunately, at considerable cost to Leicester City, their taxpayers, and embarrassment too, that car park had to be ripped down. So again, for me, it's worth just doing the due diligence up front on a wider aspect, just to avoid these kind of situations happening. And incidentally, I was back in Leicester relatively recently. A genuine sign I saw, I thought I'd take this. It's good to know that we're helping and we're getting to the root of the problem. So there we go. So everything we do is wrapped up in the spatial information market, and there's a big industry going on behind there that's out there trying to serve you guys with the right data at the right time. Now, traditionally, spatial information is anything, obviously, that has a spatial reference to it, anything that needs to be shown in its where aspect. And traditionally, that was mapping. But what we're finding in a sort of more data-driven industry is actually that includes other things now. You need to know things like address data, height data, terrain data, 3D visualization, aerial photography too. It all wraps up into one, and there's more and more layering that can now be done in this industry. In fact, it's evolving that way. Mapping, however, is still the core to the industry. In fact, it's one of the largest growing industries in the UK right now, right from the mass market satellite navigation devices all the way through to the Google suite of products, which really have changed the way we view the world from the desktop. Now, there's good and bad sides to this as data consumers yourself. The good side being it drives more innovation in the market, in the product, as we'll see in a minute. The inherent danger, though, with a growing industry is it brings a number of different players to it. And recently, a technology company who remain nameless, do have a slightly fruit-based name, though, if you want to have a guess, they brought a digital mapping product to market that had the Old Trafford football ground in the middle of Birmingham. Now, if there's any football fans in the room, you'll know that while that might be more convenient for the traditional fan base of Manchester United, in terms of making accurate mapping and location decisions, it's fairly useless. So this is where Landmark come in. We've got a little tool called ProMap. Apologies for the plug. But this is where you can go on and you can access all the data that you require about a site in one place. So again, it takes some of the pain out of gathering data. The beauty of ProMap for you guys is it's subscription free. It's all done on pay as you go. So if you're only going to do one BIM project this year, you're only going to visit us once, you're only going to spend once. So again, that takes some of the cost and the heat out of it. And when you're in ProMap, you can access all the layers of mapping. That's the bread and butter. There's 8 layers of Ordnance Survey mapping, the king of which is the detail map you see there on the screen. It's scaled between 1 to 1250, clearly shows field boundaries, building outlines, etc., etc. And in ProMap, you can customize, annotate, get that as a measurement, or take that out as a digital vector format, in whichever format best suits your requirement. You can pick, if there's a format all your parties are using together, then you can use that one. But I say with the innovation, OS have begun to recognise, or certainly what BIM has done for our industry, is allowed us to push back on data suppliers and say, look, we need a little bit more innovation. So they've actually begun to produce attributed vector data sets at different scales now. So you get 1 to 10k, 1 to 20k, 1 to 35k mapping as well that has attribute data behind it. So you can get some intelligent data and drop that into CAD too. The other thing it's helped us with is licensing. So we've actually been able to push back and ensure that the data that's coming out allows you to use it in the way you want to use it in the collaborative protocols that BIM Level 2 demands. So again, when you're taking any data out of ProMap, you're getting it with a license that allows you to put into any commercial or public document. You can get it so it can be archived, so you can sit with it for 15 years. And I say, it just wraps up and helps and engages with all your collaborative needs. So as I alluded to earlier, there are a number of different data sets that you can get to get a full and complete picture of the site you're looking at. And I just want to give you a quick whistle-stop tour of them now. You probably can't see that well, but you can get hold of aerial photography and you can get that with a world file. So again, it's not just a case of taking screenshots now of Google Earth. You can actually take it out as a digital file with a world file next to it, which has georeference data with it. So you can drop that on top of your map and get an aerial photo that will work within your CAD systems. You can also do historic. You can go back in time, see what's on your site. There's a historic map library that's available to data and property professionals that goes back to about 1910s when the bombers first went up. And there's also a raster historic mapping too. Now this is quite an interesting data set. It goes back to about the 1840s and covers the whole of the Great British mainland. But there's also various periods where Ordnance Survey weren't mapping, which we've got covered with some scarily accurate German Luftwaffe and Russian KGB mapping as well. Now the Russian KGB mapping, just go on a tangent for 2 seconds, was found in an abandoned train carriage in Estonia when the Soviet Union dissolved at the start of the 90s. And rather frighteningly, it's more accurate than anything Ordnance Survey have produced. For example, Salisbury Plain, which is shown on the Ordnance Survey map as a swathe of green land, but with Stonehenge popped right in the middle. On the Russian map, shows you where the secret army battalions are, because obviously our government doesn't want you to know that. So again, if you want the full, true and complete picture of the site you're looking at, again, it's there. Also, every road has a width as well, and we can only presume that's in case they wanted to get tanks down there. There we go. There's also a data set that allows you to see proximity of planning application history to your site. You can also get an idea of whether the building you're working in and around is a listed building. And also we've got a social infrastructure database too. So again, if you're placing your building somewhere, you can see where the nearest train station is, where the nearest bus stop, where the nearest chemist shop, things like that. So again, you can begin to build up a picture around your building and give it a little bit more context. And we've also, with advancements in data collection, we're now able to produce highly toleranced height, contour and terrain model as well as to produce actual 3D visualization models. So at your fingertips, you're able to download 3D models which show the built environment around your site. And these are attributed, so again, you can pull buildings out, you can put your building in, run sun shadow studies, that isn't easy to say. And again, just see the impact that your building or your infrastructure is going to have on its surroundings. Flood, again, is another big issue. It's mentioned in the BIM guidelines to have how you deal with the different types of flooding. A lot of property professionals just rely on the EA. Now, the EA is a great data set, but it only really deals with river and flood defences and some groundwater. What we've seen in the UK over the last 20 years or so is actually a lot more flooding is dealt with what we call pluvial flooding. So that's things like hillside runoff, excess rainwater, drain blockage, etc. So we need to begin to identify that. And again, there's also a big thing about insurance and flooding. If you're going to put a building somewhere, are you actually going to get insurance around it? And there's a database run by Aviva who will look at this, but they'll look at it from an insurance point of view. So rather than saying everyone in and around the Thames has had it, they'll look at it with contours in mind. So they'll look and say, look, John at the top of the hill will pay less than Bob at the bottom. Now, just to explain that better, I'm going to use graphic descriptions. We all like a picture, don't we? I'm going to use one of my favourite cities in the country, Hull. Anyone ever been to Hull? Anyone from Hull here? Oh, rats, I've got to be polite about it. Hull's a wonderful city. You should visit it once. Definitely once. So, Hull's built on the River Humber. The two red lines you see are the rivers that go up through it. There's a river that goes up through the city. And in this case, the one on the right is a culvert that goes underground. So again, there's a data set that will help you identify river risks that aren't there for the naked eye. The blue dots, the blue areas there, are where EA have identified flood risk. So again, if you were just relying on that, that's where they would say there's flood risk. And the green dots are a historic insurance database. So that's where claims were made, in this case, in 2007. Now, if I bring in the pluvial and the groundwater risk data, well, you wouldn't want to live in Hull anytime soon, would you? For a number of reasons. But no, what you get is you get the full, you get the full and complete picture of the site you're looking at. So again, and I know you get more points in the BIM guidelines for identifying and how you deal with groundwater flood risk, pluvial flood risk, etc. So again, that's there at your fingertips in the format that you require it. So finally, let's talk about real life. So this was one of our house builders who actually built this, quite a long time ago, actually, not that far from here. I think it was in Stevenage. And they built these houses in 2004. But before they did it, before they went ahead and went on the land, they just wanted to know what the land looked like. So from us, they bought a full historic map pack. So let's look at it. So 1898, well, there's gasworks near there. There's an old wharf, 1914. It's getting a bit bigger, the gasworks. That wharf's creeping up a little bit to the property point. There's a depot suddenly appeared in 1962, which is a timber works by 1967, which is all over it by 1990. And then bang, here we go. 12, 14 years later, we're building houses on it. But the point here is that very quickly, very cost effectively, and from one address search, they can get a full picture of the site they're building on, and they can make an ROI calculation as to whether that project's worth going ahead. And that's the same with all the other data. You can get hold of that very, very quickly. So the good news is that's it from me. But I'll just say, just two things to leave you with. One, data is out there for you, and we can take the pain out of it very quickly. It's there, it's licensed, and it allows you to use it. Just go for it. Enjoy your data, put your building in its wider context, and happy data playing. Guys, thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate it. Cheers.